I made this evening. Claire said she didn't mind, and Lisa, I'm sure doesn't mind either. But I want to get us started. So this is Lisa Spears. I met Lisa, I don't know, when John Hoppendale was here giving a reading, and we had the reception at Buxton Books. I was standing around, hovering around John's table, looking at his books, and I saw Lisa standing there and just instantly was attracted to her personality. We spoke. She happened to have one copy of her book with her, and I loved it. So I wanted her to come and share some with you tonight. The book is called Releasing Birds. By the way, Lisa is a teacher. Lisa, what do you teach?
High school English.
Okay. And I have just something that you wrote about releasing birds. It was published by Free Verse Press. The cover was designed by Marcus Amaker. And this is what she said. Releasing Birds book pays homage to the inner landscape of a journey. Although the lines are black and white, every truth is color. I hope to give credence to that. My mother taught me to look for the birds on every walk. When you don't see them, listen. And I am listening still. Lisa.
Actually, the first poem that I'm going to read tonight isn't from my book. It's the latest poem that I have written. It's a shorter poem. I teach at a school for troubled kids. I received a phone call last Saturday. And this poem was sort of my way to process that call. And the name of the poem is called Adverbial Pause. Another boy was murdered by another boy. Today I got the news. When the principal calls at 6 p.m. on a Saturday, it's never good in my school. Where they share lunch and high fives and still love when I bring candy. Now I can't teach them about adverbs, how splendidly, gleefully beautiful it could have been to turn 16. It's very interesting. Someone who teaches adverbs, yes. It's going by the wayside. Okay, this one it's not the first poem in the book, but it sort of starts it off. It's on page 10. It's called, and this is a book of memoir poetry, right? And it gives almost like a skeleton of a memoir in it. So all the poems are based on truth. This one's called The Labor in Delivery. In New Orleans, my sister was born. In Pains, my mother circles the Mardi Gras. In the taxi, the meter is ticking. In the window, all the people are dancing. In the hospital, my mother, who is Judy, is Mrs. Billie Jean. In the room, she cries for my grandma Eileen. In the stirrups, she is still on the run. In the hall is my father with the fake beard and glasses. In his pocket, a loaded gun. In Kentucky, he shot a cop dead. In the US, he is the top 10 most wanted. In February, it is the 20th. In the hotel, I am 5 years old, waiting. Out comes the baby. I love my sister. So. This is one that Tamara likes. It's one of my favorites too. But, it gives a little bit of, because I talk about my mother suffered from mental illness at a time that they did not know a whole lot about it. And I was the oldest of 5 siblings. And so I viewed that from a child's eye, and I write a poem in the book. But this poem here gives credence to her personality when she was well. It's called Prayer Practice. Our Father, my mother said, was how you begin to pray. And she gave me the shape of the world in my outstretched hands. She said President Kennedy was shot like the Lennon John, and then another man named King. And the streets were flooded with so many tears of all the people. And when I was born, I only weighed 2 pounds, And my grandma caught a bus every day to light a candle and make me a miracle. She said that the POWs in Vietnam were scared and alone, and they were somebody's brother, father, or son, and that we had plenty to be together and have pancakes for supper. And someday we might have a color TV to watch The Wizard of Oz. She said my dad had done something wrong, and that's why he was in prison, and it was okay to still love and try to forgive him, and that I should try not to complain on our walk to the pond, because we were all girls and my brother didn't have a moon to take him fishing. She said it was getting late, and I looked past the ceiling to what would be the stars to finish praying, and I knew there were angels watching her, watch me, and thine was the glory. I'll do a lighter one about motherhood that I thought was nice, just to lighten things up a little. Called Keepers of the List. They say every mother should have a list, a way to stay on top of it all. The list is a lie. We waited in laundry, late night feedings, ear infections, and what's for dinner. We divided Cheerios, toys, turns for TV in the front seat. Mostly we divided ourselves into 7 for work and home and school and projects in the last kiss and who didn't get cake. We celebrated every birthday, holiday, baptism, award at school, games won, and he took a step and she lost a tooth, first dance and graduation. We were hillers of skin knees, of hurt feelings from a teacher, friend, or foe. Let me take your tent, make some soup. Did that dream scare you? Is that a rasp? We waited for first words, steps, report cards, until someone found a shoe. Footsteps on the stairs, a car door on the drive. We were listeners about a day at school of the voices from cartoon characters, for falls, ambulances, a ringing phone, silences, tears, and for the words, I love you. How much we love them, I still don't know the answer. To infinity and beyond, and more than that. I just know we did it, and you have a friend in me. Now what's up ahead is finding the girls from before they were born, and the women after they've grown. Meet me at my house, let's try them on. I wrote that. There's a few poems in the book that I've written for people that were important to me.
Wow,
I was a single mom of 2 daughters. Okay, this one, I want to give credence to the facts of mental illness and also from a child's perspective. It's called All the King's Horses and What Can't Be Put Back Together Again. The mind is a fragile thing. I bore witness with 6-year-old eyes to its greatness and its demise. My mother's innocence was not of this world, and my father's greatest crime was bringing her down to earth with heavy fists and loaded guns in her own street corner. Price of an open mouth. After his arrest, she resurrected rainbows, roses, and a red-breasted robin. She taught me to walk in the garden. Soon she began that ascent to the stars, conversing with holy angels in gibberish, unclosed, hands lifted. She left on a stretcher like a strapped rubber doll to the state asylum gallows. In time, she would return to gather her children under her wing, happy tears, and fly away home. Our 3 heads lay on her chest, her heart, her house, breathing. I, as the oldest child, devised a plan to build a fortress, hold all invaders at bay. Once the walls of silence were secure, I put on my armor and doubled, playing hopscotch in Central Guard. Careful, Mom is there weeping. She's reaching for the stars in our enchanted garden. The saints are marching in again. Her mind floats somewhere far above. She will beat the devil black and blue out of me. He must go out of you. Be strong, be brave, be true. I will help gather our provisions, pack up the car, toys, dog, and children. We moved over 30 times in 9 years. We just kept learning the voices, the watered down versions of my father. By the time I was 18, she had lost my siblings and homelessly wandered the streets. After she died, I learned a mother's love far outweighs an imbalance of the mind. I threw down my armor and gathered her voice like a ring to wrap around me. It tells me that I am all things good. One more, or how long have you?
Yeah, you have maybe time for two.
Okay,
I love the one about you gathering your brothers and sisters. Did you read that?
I have not,
Foster,
releasing
I
birds,
love that.
that's
That you were-
sort of the title of it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let me go to that one. I didn't bookmark that, so just. give me a second.
It's rare that I can't put a book down. But I couldn't put a book down. I read from the first page and I kept reading. I had to finish it.
Releasing birds. Lately, I've been counting birds, a rosella, robin, and redwing, a many, the sapphire, sparrow, snowfinch, and swallow, to name a few. I can see their indelible patterns, shapes in the vast sky. Look, they hover just above the rim of my childhood. The house is small and gray shingled, blustery like it could be rain. I am there at 9 years old, the little keeper of so many siblings. They have found a baby bird taking shallow breaths with a tiny yellow beak, open mouth, no sound. They put it in a box. When they are all nested, the house is fast asleep. I am haunted by their catch and devise its release. The moon hangs low. I run along a silver path to a tree with open limbs. Then I place the little bird onto the long, soft grass. I will return my mind there 1,000 times 10. I am only 18. Mom has bipolar. She is sick again. The state has come to take my siblings, and the sky is falling. Sister circling memories, baby birds in my chest. Run to me, brown-eyed brother. See me walking after school. Here, middle sis, let me lace those shoes. Baby Sue can't find my hair to twist with love fingers. She's afraid of the dark, open mouth, no sound. Circling, the state has taken little hands to keep warm in my pockets. Fallings, hopscotch with squiggly lines, balls and jacks and wagon rides. Plowing up doorsteps and byways and lowways and sideways, the state took everything, every morning. For over a decade, in offices, wrong houses, on the phone, I wait. It's my brother, dear brother, who plays football for Kansas State. A little bird flew from my chest as I held his grown face. I didn't stop until I set every bird free. Baby Sue was last, how she waited for me. 12 fosters and a one teddy bear, circling, circling, circling. We were finally all there. Now there is Sarah, Stephen, Faith, Nevaeh, Nicholas, and Sayeri, David, Mary, Bernadette, Philomena, Teresa, and Joseph. Then comes Marie and Paige, followed by Susan, also known as Elsie, Kenny, Ziona, and Beth. There's Angel, Eliana, Hope, Melody, and the baby, Sunny. Me, I leave from behind, our silhouette in the sky. Look, there's a tree with arms of orange. One more.
Okay.
Let's see. I think I'll read the last, not the last, but it's closer to the last. I had this book one. So this one is called Finding Time. Is it all rushing by so fast? This life, how it somehow got away? If I might ask, could you go to your mind's eye? Look, there on that hill far away, the wondrous time of childhood. Here where the longest of days are etched like fossil in that one lone feather. There you are blustering among the walls of lasting joy, where anything is possible. Where a ship on the highest sea set off from a sidewalk puddle, and a paper roll, the telescope to view that faraway star. See the stage, how you traveled to those big, bright moons. Can you tell me when we put boundaries around the journey? Is this how we lost track of time? Somehow, in the pretense of our maturity, we lost the immeasurable tangibility of the ever-present now. Stop, turn around, pick up time from the rushing pile among all things commonplace. There is still the longest afternoon, how it waits for you before the glow of the corner street lamp calls. Savor the taste of that brown, ripe peach. Find your friends, make a pact, forge anew to an unknown path, roll down a hill and laugh, just laugh. You might hold again that long ago truth. You are invincible. I wish you might find me there along the road, among the crowd of faces, with a kind word, an unwavering glance. Recall the touch of hand, leaving a lasting, indelible impression. Here and now, you are life's shining promise. Look to the stars, see your silhouette, the stage, the moon is waiting.
Just checking on the Zoom folks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to introduce Claire Bateman. Ashley Krauss been telling me for the last couple of years how brilliant and good she is, and it's true, it's all true. She is the author of 9 poetry and prose collections, most recently Wonders of the Invisible World with 42 Miles Press, and Scape with New Issues Poetry and Prose. Her hybrid collection, The Pillow Museum, is forthcoming with FC2 Press in January 2025. She has been awarded individual artist fellowships by the National Endowment for the Arts, Tennessee Arts Commission, and the Surdna Foundation, as well as 2 pushcart prizes and the new Millennium Poetry Prize, also twice. She has taught at Clemson University, the Greenville Fine Arts Center, and various workshops and conferences. She lives in Greenville, South Carolina, and is the poetry editor of Hubris. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Tamara and Jim and the Poetry Society. Thank you, Della, for this wonderful venue, and thank you, Lisa, for that beautiful reading. Very powerful and poignant. And of course, thank you all for coming. So for Zoom and in 3D. As Tamara mentioned, it's been kind of chaotic today with car issues, so I was going to go over all of these again, but I didn't have time, so I'm just gonna kind of go with what I planned. I thought I'd read one or two poems from each book, and end with new poems and forthcoming poems in my next book. So this is kind of describing what it was like to be a kid in a suburb in the 1950s and 60s, and just kind of what it felt like and how we weren't really connected in community. That kind of dissolution of community had already started with these individual dwellings and people kind of going their own ways. And I take a mythological tack with this poem. If worst came to worst, in the neighborhood, it was always 6 p.m. The fathers were always coming home, hatted, briefcased, stepping out of their cars like astronauts back from unimaginable orbits, hailing each other the way fathers knew, in that receding way, like shaking hands without touching, and other tricks that grown men had. Each key fit its separate slot. Each door let out its identical wedge of light. Then the street was empty again, soaking up the dark. In the house, patterns of attention reversed themselves like weather systems on the evening news. My sister and I released our mother, who floated toward our father with his martini. Ice cubes clinked together like tiny chimes. Draw the curtains, girls, she said, and peering out, I saw curtains closing in the house next door. That night, his coat hung streaming, hooked over the top of the closet door. He spoke of roads closed, bridges out, shaking his head with seriousness, approaching pleasure. We ate supper with the news on, the voice admonishing travelers, the room radiant with television luster. After a while, the rain stopped, but not the wind. Inside that howling, we watched and watched the screen until with a snap, it went hot white, then blank. The air sizzled into silence. Outdoors, people were standing on their porches. Stretched across the street, 2 wires lay crossed and humming. And up and down the block, the fathers warned until we knew by heart the penalty. Your body stiff as a dog's hit by a car. Your tongue soldered to the roof of your mouth, your eyeballs going black around the pupils, and no one moving to save you, because even your shoes would be contagious with light. And that was when I knew it must have happened, someplace where worst came to worst. That fated child, another me, hair jolted out, straight, limbs jerking, stiff, and melded onto my jacket, a neighbor, with another neighbor fused to him, hand to shoulder to hand. Just as with the goose of the golden egg, everyone locked into that single fire, touching and scorching all the way down the block. So that's kind of what it would take for people to come together.
Claire, would you also tell us what books those come from?
Oh, this is The Bicycle Slow Race. Okay, this is another, this is completely made up. This is from At the Funeral of the Ether. Breaking. On the night of my birth, my mother's pains were so placid, so widely spaced. She slipped away from the labor ward, hitchhiked home, picked up her hair with stars the colors of amethysts, and escorted me to the opera inside a magenta gown that required such quantities of silk the spiders must have thought they'd been spinning a veil for the world. Having caught a slight cold, she heard the music as if from the center of a tunnel, translating it for me phrase by phrase, sotto voce, a step behind each singer, trough to crest. At intermission, I permitted her to sip cognac from a fluted glass so small it might have been designed for a doll. Also, I allowed her a deep draught from a skinny cigarette, dark as chocolate with a golden tip. Outside all night long, it was Topeka, Kansas. Pressing her hot brow against the ladies' room window like a lamp shining through the glass, my mother murmured to me of glaciers and granaries, and I beheld in her thoughts my first snowfall, an inverted reflection since I was head down, pendant in waters, watching the flakes rise to disappear. She explained sorghum and transcendence and tried to teach me my numbers. Oh, how I longed to please her, but I could never move past 1. This is Return to Sender, Clumsy. And I wrote a series in this book, a sequence called The Postmaster Letters, and they're all just letters to Dear Postmaster, just like kind of complaint letters. Dear Postmaster, I saw in the newspaper how you were planning to assign zip codes to ships. This is not right. The entire reason for a zip code is that it stands still. The entire reason for a ship is that it is moving. Not everything should be treated as though it stands still, because in my opinion, there are certain things that do not. For example, history and also marriage. Even though what you are inside of moves so slowly it cannot be felt, this does not mean it is not moving at all. In fact, you can turn it around so it goes back in a direction it came from, but not always in time to save someone who has fallen overboard or maybe jumped. This is from Locals, a collection of prose poems. And in each of these prose poems, it's kind of science fiction-y. Each is a different realm in which the laws of reality work a little bit differently. Each morning in this realm, the people check to see that once again during sleep, they have been reincarnated, or more accurately, reinstated as themselves, complete with personal histories, memory gaps, and ingrown toenails. Themselves, not still, but again, old people themselves, pregnant women themselves, even the infants and the unborn, though they don't realize it, themselves. Occasionally, someone stays up all night. Though this person may feign normalcy, the excruciating courtesy that friends and family exude only intensifies the shame of being yesterday's version. This is from a book called Leap. Sisters. I write a lot about sisters. I have no sisters. I don't have daughters. I don't know. We write from absence and imagination. Sisters. The moment the door of mother's taxi slammed, leaving Myra Louise in charge for the week, she announced that because she detested vacuuming and despised the odors of ammonia and wax, we were forbidden to set foot on any of the floors. Thus, it was by the power of her ferocity alone that we floated scufflessly several inches over the carpets and tiles for the entire duration of mother's absence. When we began to feel nauseous from lack of contact with solid ground, we were instructed to go outside and stand on the sidewalk, not the grass, which was to remain unruffled. Myra Louise didn't like to make beds either, so we were commanded to hover over the top quilt. When we grew chilly in the small hours of the morning, we were allowed to put on our coats, but we were not permitted to come within an arm's length distance of the bed. I remember noticing that plump little Angela and her brown mackinaw resembled a short, thick wiener being turned on a spit as she rotated slowly, but apparently not uncomfortably, in the air above her cot, while Myra Louise shone her ubiquitous flashlight around the room to make sure no one was illicitly touching down. And those last two were prose poems, which I've fallen in love with, and Richard Garcia is with us as a maestro of prose poems. This is not a prose poem. This is from Coronology. This is a long one. Story of your life. After you were born, you couldn't figure out how to fit inside your body. Sometimes you'd squunch yourself way over to one side. Other times you'd overflow your skin in all directions. But no matter how you twisted and tossed, you couldn't get comfortable. No wonder you were always flailing and wailing, your flesh prickly with rash, your eyes crossing, your feet turning in. No wonder you were such an inveterate spitter-upper. The corners of your mouth perpetually dribbling breast milk, soy milk, goat's milk, and every chemically engineered infant formula the late 20th century had to offer. After several months of this, you complained to your tutorial entity. Guardian, you said, my skin is rashy, my eyes cross, and my feet turn in. None of this is uncommon, replied the guardian. You're probably just a slow learner. So you dutifully returned to the all-absorbing assignment of babyhood, but in not too long you were back. Guardian, you said, even for a slow learner, my difficulties seem to be inordinate. Like an egg plucked too early from its saucepan, it's as if I'm cooked on the outside, but still running within, unable to coalesce. Also, there is the matter of my continual spitting up, which out of a natural sense of delicacy, I refrained from mentioning. I'm sure everything's okay, said your guardian, but just to reassure you, I'll go check the big book of symptoms. Sit tight, I'll be back in a jiff. As a matter of fact, however, you were finishing up your graduate work when the guardian returned, without seeming to notice the time lapse. According to the book, the guardian explained, you are a difficult baby, just one of a tribe of difficult babies, destined to seek professional fulfillment in what is currently known as liberal studies, more specifically, the literary, visual, or performing arts. What this means in practical terms is that your hair will grow in funny, and that you will spend decades of your life attempting to compensate for this. From the time you first learn to walk, you will be the sort of individual who manages to fall upstairs. The invisible grain of salt with which you will take everything will be roomy enough to contain many mansions, thus making you something of an outcast, at least through the 7th grade. You will learn to endure 23 kinds of fatigue known only to your tribe. On slow days, your mind will resemble an army ant colony gassed with nitrous oxide. But when anyone asks you what's wrong, you will learn the hard way to reply, nothing. In short, you will be unable to either digest or regurgitate the world. But you will be able to behold night pouring itself with unwavering confidence between winter branches. You will be able to trace each inlaid coil of the rare but magnificent Mobius rose. You will be able to overhear every quarter note of Otis Redding's last song rising from his wrecked plane to tap gently against the bottom layer of that lake of ice. And you will be able to make other people hear it too. That's lovely, you responded, but how will I earn a living? Well, said the Guardian, official prognostications are as yet a little spotty, but the general feeling is that because of a new idealism due to Burgeon in the 80s, government support for the arts will grow even stronger into the next century. Gas prices will plummet, the economy will be robust, and the culture will veer sharply away from technology toward the humanities. Sculptors will be besieged by would-be patrons, and everywhere on buses you will behold folks reading skinny little poetry books they stood in line for hours to purchase. Your entire tribe will flourish. That was the turning point of your moral life. That was the moment you truly touched your blessing. Though you could have roughly straightened out that Guardian, told it everything that had happened in its absence, forced it to see you as you'd become, a weak straggling thread on the fraying edge of the swiftly unraveling middle class. You found yourself curiously protective toward this entity, which, though deluded, clearly had your best interests at heart. So instead you said very gently, thank you, O Guardian. I am most grateful for your tidings of comfort and joy. I now release you to go on your way, for I have listened carefully to all of the words you have spoken since we first met, and I believe that they are holy and true. And as a matter of fact, they were, at least some of them. Thank you. This is not unlike that poem. This is from Scape. When blank anonymous. Oh, and this is my bookmark. I make bookmarks too. So let me know if you want a bookmark. When AA offered me the use of their big blue book, I respectfully declined, though never has my life not been rather either unmanageable or about to become so in subtle, indeterminate ways I have no name for. I know that 12 steps would prove impossible, beyond Herculean, 6 overwhelming. In fact, even a single step would surely undo me. So I've been holding out for a smaller book the size of a thumbnail, only one word per page, not blue, but clear all the way through, the letters surging up through layers of transparency, ready to mistake my fingers for breadcrumbs. This visual buoyancy might induce in me a micro vertigo constituting an anti-step, a stagger, a stumble, something akin to a fall, though full body contact with the actual ground would not, I hope, be required. This is from my most recent book, Wonders of the Invisible World. This is part of the title poem. I write about a lot of wonders. Wonders of the Invisible World. Doesn't everybody get a strange life? Don't we get to walk around inside ourselves all day long and sleep there through the whole night? Don't we have permanent access to the magnum and the minimum opus, the rising up and the sinking down? Aren't we granted the right to refrain from occupying more than one place at a time, from sharing the portable spaces we inhabit, from being in the least interchangeable? Doesn't it take all of our courage to be this, but not that? No matter how incremental the distinctions in this world, where even the smallest entity is epic to itself and objects go precisely to their own edges and then stop, or at least hesitate. Don't we all get the ocean and the idea of ocean, diffusion, resistance, and support, along with those in-your-face heavens of exponential blue, cumuli performing their high wire act as the wind releases its flayed and flaming exhalations? And consecutive failures, each more luminous than the last? Don't we get to drink deeply of the sun and grief and night and other voluminous bodies? And there's all this topiary profusion, and there are things that are discrete things that overlap, things that can be left to themselves, and things requiring intermittent maintenance and repair. There are things which, once released from their containers, will never fit back in. There are things we've torn apart with our bare hands. A few of them are even visible. Here, where it's been arranged for us to be asynchronously lonely, while we tingle with the temporal heebie-jeebies as though preparing to lift off, with wings sutured together from the mangled remains of defective feathers. Up comes a small wind, and the temperature begins to drop. O bright wound of existence, so feral and ferociously shy, first wonder of the unseen world, are you God or just some kind of emissary? How chagrined we find ourselves that we couldn't have made you up, nor water, whose work is to taste like nothing, nor air, whose work is to look like nothing, nor fire, whose work is to billow in the bloodstream, impersonating nothing, even as it burns. Okay, a few new ones from, a few prose poems from the book that's coming out, the Pillow Museum. Gloves. All over the world, the multitudinous tribe of gloves is unraveling. Firefighters are aghast, along with chefs, nail technicians, surgeons, and their beleaguered assistants. The circus mistress and her troupe of clowns, even Mickey Mouse himself, small and proto-human, at the cartoon piano as he gazes transfixed at his 8 fingers popping out of their puffy white swathing. Cotton, leather, latex, silk, from opaque to sheer, all those tips splitting open like sea anemones, blooming in time-lapse sequence as fibers loosen and fray down the length of the fingers toward the palms. With our hands, we have done terrible things to the earth and to each other, and this is either our warning or the first phase of our punishment. Hatchling. The larval flute is exhausted from straining to sprout holes. Though it understands that every musical instrument in the whole world had to undergo a similar process, it can't help but wonder, is there a holding place somewhere for lopsided violins and violas, gap-toothed pianos, clapperless handbells, unhollowed drums? Is the larval flute destined to join them? And if so, what kind of ailing music could they make together? Everything, no matter how raw or ill-formed, is required to sing.
Yes.
And then the last one. Going under. We sleep when our skin becomes saturated with night. We sleep for escape from noonday glare, flat light, ghost light, the hours when spirits walked, as the ancients believed. We sleep because we're exhausted by the 71 dimensions of sky bearing down on us, inexorable as stone. We sleep because we've run out of thoughts, or we have too many thoughts, or the spaces between the thoughts have grown thick with a soft gray pileous substance that neither fur nor mold, but like them in texture, exuding a subtle soporific fog. Some of us sleep as punishment, sent supperless to our severe and narrow beds. Others sleep for indulgence, arms outflung, luxurious expanse unfurling. We sleep incidentally, we sleep incrementally. We sleep exuding dreams like the voluptuous ink clouds of an octopus garden. We sleep on our feet like horses. We sleep curled over the steering wheels of parked cars, and sometimes terrifyingly as we drive. We dote on sleep as if it's a delicate only child that we ply with bonbons, bedeck with pearls, and oil with tinctures of crushed diamonds plucked from the coronation tiaras of popes and queens. We bargain with sleep, we chastise it, we compete with each other over its supreme inadequacies. I had the worst night. No, mine was far more wretched. We stalk our sleep, dragging our paltry nets and snares behind us as we crawl over miles of crushed glass and barbed wire toward where it was last sighted. We sleep in layers, we sleep in stages, we sleep through sequences of false awakenings, as though tumbling down the stairs of sleep through sub-basement after sub-basement in interminable descent. We sleep through the first, second, third, and fourth watches of the night, and in the intervals between them that are not made of time, but of slippage and unlikeness. In sleep, we're everyone we've ever been, and we're the deaf self we like to pretend is a stranger, though it's been our nearest companion from the very first breath. We sleep incandescently, we sleep phosphorescently. In sleep, the body breathes as houses do, no matter how many caked up layers of caulk and sealant the owners have applied. Slow seepage of breath, voices, memories, aromas, and soul glow. Who lived in your house before you? What dream residue brushes your face like spider silk as you cross the threshold between rooms? And long before there were houses, the land itself slept during great freezes when the fish dreamt in suspension, torpid under layers of ice, and during the aftermaths of flood when everything was tranced and still. That was the sleep of history before the twinkle of electronic devices in every room like domestic constellations. Now sleep texting is on the rise since everyone beds down near or even with their phones as though connected by an unseen umbilical cord. So in the morning, pixels reveal the heart's occult detritus like broken shells and fish bones exposed by a receding tide. Complaints, declamations, confessions, personal manifestos, breakups, propositions, proposals. Yes, the culture of sleep is changing. There's sleep shopping too, a retail extravaganza in the emporium of night. And that's just the beginning. Soon all vehicles will be autonomous, sentient metal pods bearing slumberers trying to chip away at the compound interest on their sleep debt during transit, so that dreaming will be associated with motion itself. And the very act of getting into a vehicle will cause us to nod off. We'll wake just in time to stumble into work and log in. Though there's something about sleep that will never be commodified, never turned into capital, because the real reason we sleep is for relief from the sensation of being always repeatedly and continually ourselves. Ourselves when we wake up in the morning, ourselves when the clock strikes midnight, and in between, as we pause to check during micro moments of awareness during the day. Still ourselves. Who would have thought it?
That's magnificent. If anybody have questions for Claire,
I got a question.
okay.
So I think this might be the 5th time I've seen you read. And every single time, I think you're the most imaginative and creative poet that I've ever experienced.
You've seen a lot of poets, thank you.
And I would love to, I was worked as an engineer for 15 years. My mind just does not take flights of fancy. Like, I wish it were, I wish it did. I wish I could write a poem like that. I just wonder, do you have any insight? Maybe this is just the way that these poems pour out of you. How do you go there to somewhere these very fanciful universes that you create in your poems? How do you do that? Do you know how you do that?
I do know how I do it. Well, first of all, I'm not entirely from this planet. I don't know where I honestly don't know, but most of me is not here. I can't quite explain it.
Whatever.
And I grew up on Star Trek and I read a lot of fiction, and my mom had a great imagination, and I've just always loved to read and imagine and wonder. And also I should have brought it, this enormous notebook. And we all have weird little brain blips that what if this or wonder that. And as a scientist, I'm sure you have your own version. Like if they invert the capacitors, what would, I don't know. Mistakes that you've made, things that you've misinterpreted, things that you read and you think it says one thing and you go, what? And then you look and it says something completely different. Facts that you write down and learn about. I keep a notebook of all those things. And when I'm writing, I try to go through the notebook. I have many notebooks and weave some of those in to create little divergences, little narrative divergences. And I also I just think what if all the time. So that's the best I can do. There are writers that are far more imaginative than me. Albert Goldbart, read him. I'm sure there are others that are Mary Ruefle. Read her book, especially is it Mud? what is it? I wrote it down. It's famous. It's like. I did not write it down. Okay, anyway, it's a book of essays, and I'm embarrassed that I can't. Remember, but it's been a really long day. And so-
Oh, and Claire, there's another thing that you said earlier today, which was that you allow yourself not to stay on topic.
Right,
Yes.
right. Also, I don't, like, I envy people that could write really clear, systematic things about their work, about the things in the actual world. So because I don't know those things, I kind of have to make them up. I do research them because I'm interested in things like, engineering things and things like that, but I can't keep it in my head. And also, when I try to write about things that are real, I find that I'm just like copying Wikipedia, basically. You can't do that. So I have to make things up.
You will defeat AI.
What?
You will
Yes.
defeat AI.
Defeat AI. That's the best. That's the best vision I've heard. Anyone else have questions for Claire or for Lisa?
How did you originally get interested in poetry? I think I always wanted to be a writer, and I remember writing a poem when I was 5.
Do you remember the point?
No.
We were hoping.
Something about the movement of curtains or something that, like, something kind
Oh.
of meditative. And I always did, and then I was like on the high school literary magazine in high school, and then in college, I took a fiction class and decided that I couldn't do it, and I thought that all poets were kind of like T.S. Eliot, like the great modernists, and I thought, I can't do that. So,
It's the wasteland.
so what do you really think?
Yeah.
So, and, oh gosh, when in the early 80s, I was still kind of like writing from my head, but it wasn't that good. I was driving around the back roads of Wisconsin with my young child in the car, and I was listening to National Public Radio, or I guess it was Wisconsin Public Radio, and they talked about a bookstore called Woodland Powder, which is a literary bookstore with contemporary literature. So I went there and I got a poetry anthology, and I read it, and I thought, oh, they're talking like me, they're talking like contemporary idioms. I could maybe do that. So I started trying to do that, and then I took a workshop there, and then they kind of went from there. Once I started reading contemporary poetry, it's like, oh, okay, I found my tribe.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if there's any particular type of thing that prompts you or whatever. Do you have to actually have to look for something that would be a prompt, or is it just, life comes along and?
A little bit of both. I can't remember who said that getting ideas isn't like panning for gold and finding nuggets. You have to train, I kind of trained my mind to watch the stream as it goes by. And sometimes there's a flake. And if there's a flake, that's an idea or a moment or a fragment or an image or a possibility, and I write it down. And then there's nothing for a long time, and then there's another flake. Hardly ever does a real nugget or a chunk come along. So I just keep my mind open for the flakes. I'm curious about looking around and thinking about things. And I have lots of poems and stories that have totally fallen apart or never gotten off the ground. So you have to you have to do it a lot in order to get a few. Like with art, like I maybe get one painting that's worthwhile for every 20 attempts, something like that. So high failure rate.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your movement into prose poetry and how you feel about it?
It just, nothing really concrete. It's just, I saw one, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And then it's kind of a hybrid form, and it just makes me really happy.
Well, first of all, I would like to remind everyone that next Saturday night, we're back here in this beautiful space for tango, for tapas, for cocktails, for poetry, for storytelling, Spanish and English poetry. It's going to be such a beautiful night, and we're going to dress up a little bit in this semi-formal